Hey friends, and welcome back to Country Legacy. Today we are diving into one of the easiest and the oldest ways of preserving food. We will be making fermented sauerkraut. I know some of you that have had traditional sauerkraut and you did not like it. You might already be thinking, well, this isn't for me because I wouldn't like it. Well, I recommend giving it a try because I didn't like it either. But this way of fermenting leaves the cabbage crispier and fresher tasting. And above all of that is the health benefits. So we'll get our hands washed, grab our cabbage, and let's get started. So I just harvested this cabbage from my garden, and some of them are kind of small, like this little guy here. And this one split open on me, but I can still salvage a lot of it. So typically I make a batch with 3 heads of cabbage. And because these ones are smaller and I won't be able to use all of this, I'm gonna call this 3. The first thing I'm going to do is grab a great big bowl because this stuff bulks up in a hurry. And it really doesn't matter what kind of a bowl you use because it's not gonna stay in that bowl. As we go along in this process, I'm going to explain to you the different tools that I use and the process that I use to make it. So I'll set some of these aside here and we'll get these sliced up. You can use a food processor for this and it does make it a lot faster. If you do use a food processor, I recommend using a slicing blade. And the reason for that is so you don't get it too fine like you would if you used a shredding blade. So you want to cut off a few of these outer leaves so that you have them to put over the top of the sauerkraut. And I'll show you later how to do that. But for now, we'll just take a few of these outer leaves off. I usually just cut them up here and then it pulls off the whole leaf like that. And I'll take some off of this one. You don't need that many, but you'll want enough to cover each jar. I think I'll have about 4 jars, but it's hard to tell. So I'll set these cabbage leaves aside and we'll use them on top of the sauerkraut. So I'm going to cut this in half. And then I'm going to cut it in 4ths. And you'll see right here there's a core and we're going to cut this out. Once you cut it in 4ths, it's easier to get in here and just cut that out. Some people actually pulverize this and put it in their sauerkraut, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put it in the compost pile. And then I'm just going to take my knife and cut along here and try to cut somewhat even pieces so that it ferments evenly. Cut it this direction. And then I'll move it this way and I will cut it the opposite direction. A lot of times if I have bigger, chunkier pieces like this, I just take them out. You can leave them in though if you want to. I'll throw these over in the bowl. Grab another one here. The main thing is trying to get uniform pieces as much as possible. That looks pretty good. I'll get that in the bowl. All right, so I'm just going to keep cutting this up and we'll come back once I get it all done. Okay, I have my cabbage all chopped up here in this large bowl and it's all fairly uniform. It's not like it has to be perfect, but try to get as close as I can. And the next step is to put my salt in here. When it comes to the salt, make sure you use non-iodized salt and make sure you look at the ingredients list to make sure that that's all there is in there, just salt. And the reason for that is you don't want to use something that will kill your good bacteria. And usually you do about a tablespoon per head of cabbage. And so I equaled mine to be about 3 heads, so I'll do about 3 tablespoons of salt. And I may round up a little bit just in case it equaled out to be more. I'd rather be on the safe side. So I just usually just sprinkle it all on there. Sometimes people will do it a little at a time and I'm sure that that might work better, but this always works for me. So now that I have the salt on there, I'm just going to mix it all together. Basically, you're just kind of massaging the cabbage, getting that salt worked in there. And this process can be a little bit time consuming. You always want to make sure that you have a plenty big bowl when you're doing this because it bulks up, as you can see. As we go through this process of getting the salt onto it, and as it lets go of some of its liquids, you're going to see that it won't be quite as bulked up as it is right now. Okay, so we're going to come back here in about a half an hour. We're just going to let this sit here, and the salt will work on the cabbage and let go of some of its natural juices, and it'll make it a little bit easier for us whenever we come back. So I'll see you back here in about a half an hour. All right, now that we've let it set, we're going to get our hands in here. We're just basically going to massage the salt into the cabbage so that it'll release the moisture from the cabbage. There's so many benefits to fermented sauerkraut. If you buy the canned sauerkraut, you will not get the same benefits because when you cook things at high heat, it kills all of the good gut health benefits. Fermented sauerkraut is a probiotic-rich food that offers numerous health benefits, primarily through its positive impact on the gut health. It contains live bacteria, particularly lactic acid bacteria like lactobacillus, which are known to improve digestion and reduce inflammation and potentially boost the immune system. The nice thing with sauerkraut is you don't have to buy those expensive supplements to take probiotics, because just a small serving of this will provide more than enough probiotics in a day's time. Now, some people will take and just pound it like this to get the liquids to release. Some people use like a dowel rod or a masher, something like that. But this is the way I've always done it. I usually cut my cabbage a little finer than this. I think I'll like this chunkier texture better than the fine cabbage. You can kind of see the liquid here in the bottom of the bowl. And that's what we're trying to get, is enough liquid to put over the cabbage. Okay, I have my cabbage all ready to go in the jars. And you can use jars like this. I have a wide mouth quart-sized jar. You can use the narrow mouth jars, but you can't get your hands inside of them, so it makes it a little bit more of a challenge to use. You can use the 2-quart jars, you can use a gallon jar, you can use a crock, and actually if you have a large amount and you have a crock, that might be a good option, especially if you have weights that go on them. So I'll be using this large mouth jar to put mine in, and I'll use a funnel to help keep me from making too big of a mess. And then there's these fermentation weights that you can use. It's just basically a piece of glass that's weighted. There's a little knob in there. If I was to do this again, I'd get the type that has the knob up above. I realize that there'd be cons to that also, but it'd be easier to get a hold of. This isn't too bad, but it's pretty slippery because it's so little in there. And then there's these little silicone tops, and you can put them right here on top of the jar. And then you just take a ring and put it on there, screw it down, and then it has a little opening in the top to let the gases out. Okay, so let's get our jars filled. I'll fill it up part way and then I'll press it down. All right, so I'll just reach my hand inside of the jar and press that down. And basically what I'm trying to do is get the liquids to come up to the top and cover that. And it's doing a good job. All right, go ahead and add some more. You can make up a brine if you see you don't have enough juices, but this is doing very well. There is such a thing as a dry cabbage. Every once in a while, you'll have a cabbage that just won't let go of the natural juices, so you have to put a brine on it. I think that's about as full as I'm going to fill it. Get this up here close where you can see it better. See the liquid that's coming up over the cabbage? That's what you want. So now that the jar is filled, I'm going to fold up some cabbage and put it here on the top of it. And basically it's just keeping them loose pieces of cabbage down. You can use the core of the cabbage as a weight to hold down the cabbage. You can also get a rock from outside and either scrub it up really good, or if you're like me, you put it inside of a baggie and use that as a weight. I always worry that there's still going to be dirt or something gross inside of it, but you can do it whichever way you want. There's many things out on the market. They have springs that will hold the sauerkraut down, and I'm sure there's plenty of gadgets out there that would work. If you're new to fermenting and you're not sure that you want to really get into it, I would just start out with what you have just to save money. And if you see that you really like it, then go out and get you a few of the nicer things to make it easier. So I'll take my weight and put it here in the top and then press that down. And then take my silicone topper and put it on there. And then take my ring and close that down. And the thing with these is there's little slits right here, almost like a baby's bottle, the top of it. The gases can go out, but debris and dust and all that can't get inside of there. And I haven't had an issue with fruit flies getting in there either. Okay, I'm gonna get the rest of these filled. So I decided to grab this pan to put these into. I was able to get 4 of these done. That was the amount I was thinking, and that way I could keep my levels down a little bit lower, and it's a little less apt for it to come out the top here. So the reason for the pan is so that if any of the liquid comes out over the top and it flows over the jar, then it will keep it from going all over my counter. So I'm going to set these 4 jars out on the counter. They will sit out for about 3 weeks. You can leave them out anywhere from 3 days all the way up to 3 weeks or even longer. Some people leave them out for a whole month. A lot of it depends on how warm your home is. If you have a warm home, they will ferment faster. If you're new to making ferments, you may want to go with less time to start with. Maybe just taste it and see what it tastes like after a few days. And each day after, maybe give it a try, because it may take a little while to work up to the flavors of a stronger and longer ferment. So I hope that this inspired you to give it a try. I know that sometimes fermenting food can seem a little scary. It seems like you could mess it up. But in reality, all you have to do is watch. If you see anything growing on the top, then you know it's probably not any good. But if you do the right ratio of salt in the brine, and if you keep an eye on it, and you make sure everything is submerged under the glass weight or whatever weight that you use, you shouldn't have to worry about it. After you get done with your fermentation process of letting it set out, you'll put it in your refrigerator. The folded up cabbage that we put under the weight, you can just leave that in there until you're ready to open that jar. And that's partly why I decided to use the quart-sized jars, is I can leave all of the extra jars out in my spare refrigerator, bring one of them in here, and use that up. But by leaving the cabbage on the top, it will help it to stay good longer. Some people have been known to leave their sauerkraut in the refrigerator for a year or even 2 years. I think about 6 months is the longest I have kept mine in the refrigerator, and it was perfectly fine after 6 months. So it's kind of nice. You could make it in the fall and you have it all winter long. If you have never tried this and you give it a try, let me know what you think. And for those of you that have made the sauerkraut before, have you done some of the different things, added some apples or carrots or maybe something unusual? If you did, let us know in the comments below what you put in and how well you liked it. If you enjoy content like this, please click subscribe and join me here again next time. And thank you for spending time with me once again in the kitchen. I hope you're all having a great day. Bye for now.